NCAA fans, you need to get excited because college football is looking at expanding the playoffs. I'm going to talk about all that here, a couple seconds. What's good, everybody? It's your boy Jay here with Unfair Sports, where we take a pensive approach to the sports conversation. And on this video, we're going to talk about the NCAA's College Football Management Committee talking about expanding the playoffs. Something a lot of you have wanted. Some of you haven't. I'm not sure why, but here we are. So earlier I talked about how the NCAA was taking attention away from themselves by putting out some big news basically Friday. It's funny is that on Fridays is usually the day that news is put out and buried. News they want to have out, but they want it buried in the news cycle because of the weekend coming through. They usually put it out like on a Friday evening. That's usually the best time to put out news that you don't want anybody to talk about. Because, I mean, if you think about it, do you talk about, do you have the time are you really going to talk about stuff over the weekend? If it's not something that's just massive, the news stations, you're not really tuning in the news. You're busy on the weekends. You're off work. So a lot of us don't want to sit on the couch and consume that type of news. We may read an article here and there in the evening, but for the most part, it's the weekend. It's beautiful weather outside. If it's not, then you may be stuck in. But for the most part, when the weather's nice, you're trying to get out and about. And that's what the NCAA banks on when it comes to, well, actually every news station banks on with information that gets out there. Their whole goal is to, if they do it on a Friday evening, this is my personal opinion, they do it so that no one pays attention to it until maybe Monday. And hopefully something over the weekend happens that buries it even further before the Monday news cycle hits. Well, here we are. We have some news that I think that's going to be talked about not only throughout the weekend, but all of next week to bury the most important news of last week from the NCAA. College football is looking at expanding the playoffs to 12 games instead of the 4 that they have going on right now. So they have a committee of 4. They met with a goal of talking about expanding the playoffs from 4 teams to 12, and that will be considered by the College Football Management Committee next week. So this group that they had, these four individuals they had working together to discuss this and try to figure out what the framework could initially look like to present it was the commissioners from the SEC, the Big 12, and the Mountain West, as well as the athletic director from Notre Dame. So they're preparing to recommend this new format of 12 teams to make the NCAA playoffs. Yeah, you should be excited because this is actually pretty big news, and I think it's really cool that they're going to go this direction. I thought, personally, my guy RJ Young had put out with the number one show at Fox Sports, he mentioned he wants 16. And I can respect that. I thought 12 was probably a better number, and this is the number that they're going with. And I'm going to point out why. So what exactly does a 12-game playoff look like? So let me break this down really quick, and then I'll kind of give you some of my opinions, some of my analysis behind it. So this is based upon reporting from Nicole Auerbach and the staff over at The Athletic, which they do a fantastic job. She's amazing at this. So this is what the 12-game team format will look like. First off, there will be the 6th highest ranked conference champions, as well as 6 at-large spots. So just because you win your conference championship does not mean you will be in the playoff. You still have to be highly ranked. So that prevents schools from being 9-3 or 8-4, winning their conference championship and actually making it into the playoffs. Conference championship does not guarantee it unless you're one of the highest ranked out of all of them. There's 10 of them. The Group of 5 and the Power 5. As long as you're in the top 6, you will, ranking wise, you will make it into the playoff. And then you'll have the 6 at-large spots. The 4 highest rated conference champions will actually get a first round bye, meaning the first week of the playoffs, they don't play. I like that. Teams 5 through 12 will play home games. They'll play at their home stadiums, and it will be hosted by the higher ranked teams, which is even better. The quarters and semifinals will be played in bowl games around January 1st. And then The start time, we don't know as of yet. That's still something that's kind of being hashed out, I guess you could say. So let's unpackage some of this, because the information I just gave you kind of doesn't mean anything to you all. You kind of want to understand, okay, what does that mean? Like, give me the meat and potatoes behind this. What does this really tell us? So let's unpackage it. So because of the hearings about the name, image, and likeness, which I talked about before, the NCAA felt the need to drop this bombshell of information, something that they know will rally up the troops and get all of the fans excited, so that we can ignore the fact that the players are not being compensated. They're also finding a way to make more money and still not wanting to pay the players. Think about how much money that they make in these bowl games. They're going to make a ton more and are not going to find a way to give any of the money to the players, which is pretty ridiculous. So we're going to be talking about this weekend and throughout next week, because next week is when the actual management committee meets, and then we'll hear them make a decision. And when they make that decision, guess what? We're going to be talking about it even more, which will drown out June 17th, which is when the college football players will actually meet with the Senate Commerce Committee and talk about name, image, and likeness. We'll forget all about that, unfortunately. I'm not going to let anybody, because I'm going to talk about it next week too. But that's going to be something that most fans are going to forget, which the NCAA's whole goal was to do that. So anyway, meat and potatoes. Let's dive into this. The NCAA will have winners and losers with this. And that's the unfortunate thing. There are winners, there are going to be losers. And these are the ones that I believe will see the biggest benefits. So your winners are the group of 5. Now, the group of 5 teams, these conferences, the Mountain West, the Sun Belt, MAC, all of that jazz, will now have the opportunity to get their doors blown off by Alabama, just like everybody else. Congratulations. Because I'm not going to lie, last year I felt like Cincinnati should have went ahead and got that spot and got blown out by Alabama. Thought it would have been fair. Shouldn't have put Notre Dame in there along with Clemson. I thought it would have been better to just see one of those teams get in there and just watch them get blown out. Because irregardless of getting blown out, that may get a kid hyped to say, you know what? I don't want to go to this bigger school. I want to go there and see if we can knock off Goliath. Let's us beat David. We want to do that. They didn't get an opportunity. So now 12, they got this chance. So the group of 5 is going to be the biggest winner out of all of it, because they're going to have a chance of having more teams out there. Max Olson, also from The Athletic, had put together a list on Twitter about the last 4 playoffs and what it would have looked like if we had this format. And it's actually pretty cool. I'll make sure to get some pictures posted or whatnot so you all can see what that looks like. But it was pretty dope. The next winner is going to be football fans, because we get more football. It's going to be more football, another weekend, more meaningful games. Add this, the regular season is going to matter a lot more than it did before. How, you ask? Someone was actually talking about this on Twitter and a few other places. I've seen people mention this. They're like, okay, if they expand to this, this just means that teams are going to, inflate their schedule by having a whole bunch of cupcakes for their out of conference schedules or whatnot. Well, the problem with that is that that's not going to help your strength of schedule argument as well as your argument for your rankings. If you're playing cupcakes and then you run through your conference, but you play nobody really even in your conference, you're not going to get ranked high. That's going to be the difference maker right there. Even though I always argue the fact that you play who's in front of you. You can only play who's in front of you. You still got to find a way to get some of those good games, even if they're lower tier Power 5 teams in those group of 5 games, and blow their doors out. That way you can show, yes, we could probably compete with them. So strength of schedule is going to be important to make sure you're ranked high. So we should see out-of-conference schedules actually get beefed up more now in comparison to not. Because if you have a strong out-of-conference schedule and you still lose your conference championship game, you can still get that at large because you're still a really good team. You just weren't good enough to beat that team on that given Saturday. Another group that's got to win is going to be the one-loss teams. Imagine this. Alabama plays against my Tennessee Volunteers in the conference championship. They're both undefeated. They wouldn't be undefeated because if they play each other the third Saturday in October. That's not the point. Tennessee plays Alabama. Tennessee has one loss. Alabama's undefeated. And they face each other in the conference championship, and Tennessee blows the doors out of them the second time they play. Alabama, who probably has blown out somebody in their out-of-conference schedule, is still going to make probably the at-large spot, but Tennessee will actually still make it as a one-loss conference champion. So Alabama losing that one game in the conference championship won't hurt them from making the tournament because they know that they're a really good team, and they did great all season long and only lost that one game in the championship. So teams losing in the conference championship game won't get affected as much, which is dope. The TV networks and the home stadiums are also the last two are going to get the biggest win out of this. They're going to make so much money off of this. I mean, especially if you're hosting a game. Like, think about this. Cincinnati hosting Georgia in Cincinnati for the playoff first round because they're ranked higher. That would be so dope for them. That's going to be great for Cincinnati, for the school. They're going to have a ton of people traveling to that. It's going to get a whole bunch of national attention and the opportunity for them to even be able to, get more recruits' attention because of that. That's a big deal for them. And the TV networks making these packages. Who's going to lose out on this, though? Let's talk about the losers. We'll wrap this bad boy up. The number one loser is the players. This is why. They're still not getting paid, but they're going to play more football. I don't care about what any of you say when it comes to this piece. Period. You cannot argue against this point with me. You'll never win an argument with me on this because I can point out all the hypocrisy behind it, all the BS behind it. You're never going to be able to tell me the players shouldn't get paid, especially if they're playing more games and bringing in more money. It's ridiculous and it's preposterous that we actually think they should not be getting paid. It's ridiculous. Just remember that. It's ridiculous. I don't care about scholarships. Scholarships don't mean nothing. They can't work. They don't have time to work. And hell, most of them don't even have time to get the majors that they want to unless they are a top tier player that they have the clout or the leverage to be able to do what they want to. Like Josh Dobbs he's super smart and he wanted to be a astrophysicist, or he went into did a internship at NASA. I mean, dude's super smart. But he had that. He's starting quarterback. So they're going to let him do what he wants to do. They're going to be more flexible with him. But other players don't have that opportunity. There's reports of other players talking about how coaches recommended they take these fluff classes to guarantee A, their eligibility, B, that they have extra time to focus on football more so than academics, even though we claim that they're, student athletes. Neither here nor there. But this is the thing that pisses me off about it, and this is how we know that they're losing. Because the most popular sports in college sports are the sports that are dominated by minority, mainly black athletes. And the money that they bring in, the revenue they bring in, funds the other sports that are not very popular, which are more dominant with your white athletes. And so the black kids are working their tails off, bringing in all this money. The money's being shifted to the white sports so that they can participate, in which I have no problem with them doing that to make sure that there's more opportunity for scholarships and kids to get educations that participate as high-level athletes. But it's ridiculous that they're bringing in the billions that they're doing and still not being paid. I think that they all should be able to get paid. That's it, period, point blank. Scholarships, it's a barter system. That doesn't make any sense to me. At this point, where they are at today, the hundreds of millions that each conference bring in. Because they sure can bring up the price of coaches. Coaches are definitely getting paid. I mean, Jimbo Fisher got, $10 million a year down there at Texas A&M? But y'all cool with that. I mean, he's the coach. Ridiculous. The other losers in this. Notre Dame, BYU. Because if you notice, when I said that the four teams that are eligible for the bye week, conference champions. Neither one of them are in the conference. So this might actually be a win for fans because it may lead them to actually join a conference, which would be a good thing for them, in my personal opinion. I'd love to see Notre Dame in the ACC full-time and maybe BYU join the Big 12 because they could use more teams. They're the Big 12 with 10 teams. Since the Big Ten has, 14 teams? Something like that. But anyway, you can get Notre Dame to join the ACC, maybe even get Louisville to join the Big 12 along with BYU, and then boom, you got yourself 12 teams, and it's more of a realistic division type setup. I don't know. But that may be the winner for fans because these independents will have to make a choice. Either they want to try to make it for the at-large spots in hope that they get ranked high enough for it by playing actual competition, or they're going to go ahead and join the conference. Which I don't see them joining conferences. I can see them still just focusing on the at-large spot, so they're guaranteed to play the first round, which for them, hosting a game would actually be pretty good for them. That's a lot of money to be made. They won't have to wait to go to the bowl games with the quarterfinals and the semifinals like the other big schools will once we get to that point. And so that's really it, your winners and your losers when it comes to this. So the NCAA is looking at going 12 games. Pretty excited. As a college football fan, I love to see this. I'm amped for other opportunities to go watch more games. I just really like for, instead of them focusing on expanding this first, let's figure out a way to pay the players so that the expansion is worth it. That's all I'm saying.